Hello, America. Welcome to Your Leo Nation. I am the chief, the happily retired chief, and you are at the Leo Nation, Your Leo Nation, where we believe in and support the rule of law. We're also supporting my right shoulder right now because I had surgery about a week ago, and but I'm still here. I thought we took a few days off just trying to get me to recover enough to be on air, but here we are. I'll tell you right now, you talk about the rule of law. Talk about the rule of law. There's also another rule about, well, you know what? I'm not going to get into it too much at the beginning. We're going to just dive right into the topic today, the incident. It's officer-involved shooting, LAPD. Let me read the title from the Los Angeles Times, the headlines. A trans sex worker called 911 to report being kidnapped. LAPD officers shot and killed her. That's your headline. Here's the video. Anthony, hit it.
Hello, I am Captain Alex Jogyoji, Commanding Officer of Media Relations Division of the Los Angeles Police Department. I'm going to provide you a brief overview of an officer-involved shooting that occurred on February 7th, 2025 at around 10:30 a.m. Foothill Patrol Division officers responded to a radio call for a possible kidnap suspect at a motel in the 10,300 block of San Fernando Road. The caller reported that she was being forced to stay at the location against her will. Here is the 911 call and corresponding radio broadcast.
Okay. Y cuando dices que te están cobrando ¿por qué? ¿Porque él trae hombres al cuarto?
Sí, yo traigo a una, si usted llega también me lo lleva a cobrar. Yo tengo anotado aquí en mi lista de cuadernos, señorita, se lo juro. No tengo por qué mentirle, señor Jesucristo.
Linda, ¿te están forzando a hacer esto? Linda, ¿te están forzando a hacer esto?
Sí, es obligatorio, si no me botan de aquí. Y yo tengo dormir.
Y yo te voy a agarrar ayuda, señora, ¿ok? No cuelgues.
Anybody in a possible kidnap suspect 103 San Fernando Road at the There's no suspect description. Let's go to incident 1454-1643.
That caller was identified as Linda Moran. Upon arrival, the officers and the supervisor entered the motel room and met with Moran. During their investigation, Moran became agitated, armed herself with a knife, and held it up against her neck. The officers and supervisor exited the room and repositioned themselves at the threshold of the doorway. The officers began to give Moran repeated verbal commands to drop the knife. However, she did not comply. Moments later, Moran advanced toward the officers while still holding the knife, resulting in an officer-involved shooting. A portion of this incident was captured on the responding officer's body-worn video. Here is body-worn video from the officers involved in this incident.
She doesn't remember how she ended up over here.
Hey.
You check her head?
Hey. That just, and she said she is danger to self.
Huh?
Danger to self. Hey, sit down. Siéntate.
Dijiste que te golpeaban la cabeza, ¿verdad? ¿Dónde te pegaron?
Pero no me pongo nada fuerte en la cabeza.
¿Dónde te pegaron?
Revísenmela, pero no me pongo nada.
No, nomás vamos a revisar. ¿Dónde te pegaron?
Revísenmela, pues.
Where?
¿Dónde te pegaron?
Revísenmela, pero no me pongo nada fuerte,
I'm only.
¿ok? Yo tengo derecho a ver que no me pongan nada, ¿ok? Alcen las manos ustedes, todos.
Nomás te estamos revisando.
Sí, pero tienen derecho a alzar las manos, que no me pongan máquinas ni nada, ¿ok?
Nomás te queremos revisar que si estás golpeada.
Am I allowed to touch? She's gonna pick it
Tengo
up.
muchas canas.
Can I touch your head?
¿Dónde te golpearon?
Revísenla, pues, para eso son investigadores ustedes.
Un momento, okay?
¿Dónde te golpearon?
Bien. Point where you got hit. Tell him.
Apunta dónde te golpearon.
Revisen, pues.
Dijiste que te golpearon con una botella. ¿Dónde?
Hey.
Con muchos golpes me dieron a la cabeza.
¿Dónde? ¿Qué parte de la cabeza?
En toda la cabeza, señor. O sea, mire, me siento y boto la sangre, entonces.
Can I feel your head?
Ok, bajan la cabeza.
Anthony, go ahead and stop it.
Good.
I asked Anthony to stop it here because I just wanted to, a couple of things. First of all, if by some chance you're driving or something, you can only listen to this. Of course, it's an officer involved shooting, so you're going to want to go back and watch this when you can. And I did skip over a little bit of stuff just because obviously it's a Spanish speaking 911 dispatcher, some Spanish speaking officers. So if you're driving, you can't see the translation, but it's just FYI. But I do want you to focus in right now that these officers are there and they're actually providing medical aid, checking her out for a claimed injury that she had previous to their arrival, just to set the tone. Anthony, go ahead and play it. By the way, we're going to watch the rest of this. It's about 10 minutes, but this is going to show the officer involved shooting, and then we'll continue from there. So hit it, my friend.
There's a mole. Look up. Hey.
Levanta la cabeza.
Are those just her eyebrows, or is that?
Yeah. Look at the side of the head. Just the area she pointed to the side of the head.
I mean, I don't see any like redness or cuts, but if you get hit in the head with a bottle, you're gonna have some type of mark. I mean, the head naturally is rigid. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The wallet. She has her.
So she told the EVO that she's thinking about killing herself.
Say anything to?
Did she tell you that she wants to kill herself?
Dijiste que te quieres morir.
Heck, I'm old, bro.
¿Y quiere ver lo que me golpea Carlos? ¿Qué? ¿Quiere que me estudie para que vea lo que me golpeó?
She wants to die or do it herself.
¿Cómo te quieres morir? Dijiste, ¿cómo te quieres morir?
Pues ya de tantos países que vine, necesito pagar lo que debo, que es mi dinero.
Dijiste que te quieres morir. ¿Cómo te quieres morir?
Yo no sabré cómo.
¿Cómo lo quieres?
No sienten mis guantes en mi mesa, por favor. Porque
Te estoy preguntando algo. Dijiste que te quieres morir. ¿Cómo lo quieres hacer?
Asesinar.
¿Cómo?
Yo no sabré cómo.
¿Cómo?
No siento sus guantes, por favor, hay nada.
¿Cómo te They want the money for the hotel room, right? That's business.
¿Por qué no me revisan todo el golpe que tengo acá en España?
Un momento, ¿ok? Un momento.
Sí, pero no me topes. No me topes. ¿Ok?
Cálmate. Hey, cálmate.
Golpéame.
I'm the supervisor here. Relax.
Ya, yo me le.
Siéntate.
Bye. No me topes. Si no me van a ayudar, no me
She's
topes.
claiming business dispute happened, right?
Business dispute for the room.
For the room,
Okay.
yeah. And then supposedly they own her some money
No me
from
pueden
pyramid
ayudar,
scheme,
no me topes.
savings type of deal.
Tell her to sit down and relax over here.
Then she's claiming, no, when we showed up, she's like, oh, I'm bleeding from the anus.
Señora, cálmate.
Ojalá tus hijos les también falta más ustedes.
Back and forth.
Señora,
Hey,
cálmate. What is she saying, dude?
leave me alone.
Váyase usted y vengan un solo, ya váyase.
We'll put her in cuffs.
Señora, cálmate. Okay, por favor.
No, ya no quiero ayuda, no quiero nada.
Just tell her to calm down.
No, no, no. ¡A usted no!
Just relax.
No, váyase. No.
Ven, come here, vente.
¡No! ¡No! Si me ofrecieron ayuda, no quiero. Gracias. Haz de ayudar a tu hijo. Que lo necesita
What you saying?
No quiero. Ok, gracias. No quiero.
Just back up a little
Pero a
bit.
tu hijo más que yo, ok.
Just back up over here.
Dame mi sacrificio a tu hijo, ok. No quiero.
Jacob,
No quiero.
just stay right there and leave her alone. Don't talk to her.
Ojalá que Dios bendiga.
Yeah.
Y mira,
Telling us to get out of here.
Mira, que no vas a vivir en paz. No vas a
She's
vivir
telling
en
us to
paz.
get out of here.
Si quieres hacerme gas,
So,
échame.
tell me the rest of the story.
Échame. Yo me muero, pero tú vives
According
en
to
paz,
her,
¿ok?
She was outside.
Yo me muero
So
y
you
me
should
voy a
come back for
morir.
her. Hey,
Relax. Okay, hold on. You got DCO, you got DCO, you got less, okay?
Okay,
I'm gonna need you to get contact.
Sí, porque hay cámaras, ve, hay cámaras, mira, ve. Mira aquí, hay cámaras.
ahorita te ayudamos.
Hay cámaras atrás de ti, mira, ve.
Sí, ok,
Hay
excelente.
cámaras.
What is she saying?
Hay cámaras.
No.
No vale la pena,
Let's back up a little bit. We're gonna leave her space in the. David, back up. Just slowly. Just kind of hold right there. If we can, let's have.
No, tranquila.
You have less
Te
lethal.
vamos a ayudar.
Because you're gonna be lethal, right? I'm gonna need you to hold on to the door. Just shut it.
Te vamos a
in case you go
ayudar.
forward, okay?
Te vamos a ayudar, pero no te vamos a ayudar así.
Enséñame si tú quieres, no. A mí no me importa
Ok.
nada.
¿Quieres tu dinero?
No quiero nada.
Te vamos a dar con el dinero.
¿Qué se los pagan ustedes porque ayudan a sus hijos?
Ok.
Yo vengo de tantos países, vengo del Ecuador, por aquí no quiero nada.
No.
Háganlo ustedes.
Bota el cuchillo.
Gracias.
Ok, bota el cuchillo.
No quiero nada.
Bota el cuchillo.
No.
Bota el cuchillo. No. ¿Qué? Quédate ahí.
Relax. You gonna lay us? Yes.
No te muevas. Ok, bota el cuchillo.
No quiero nada.
Bota el cuchillo.
No.
Bota el cuchillo.
Don't touch.
No. ¿Qué? Quédate ahí.
Relax.
Yes.
Moran was struck by gunfire, dropped the knife, and fell on the bed. She was subsequently taken into custody without further incident. Here is additional body-worn video from one of the officers involved in the incident.
You two are gonna be hands, okay?
What do you want?
You're gonna be DCO. You're gonna
Hands?
your hands, okay? We're gonna roll her over. Okay? So your point. Go ahead. Slow and steady. Okay. Let's leave. Okay. Let's roll her over. What you
I
get?
got it.
Now let's see this.
Just
The officers immediately requested a rescue ambulance and rendered aid until paramedics arrived. Los Angeles Fire Department paramedics responded and transported Moran to a local hospital to be treated for the gunshot wound she sustained as a result of the officer-involved shooting. While there, medical staff determined that her injury would require admittance to the hospital. Investigators recovered a kitchen knife with an approximate 6.5-inch blade at scene and booked it as evidence. Moran was absentee booked for assault with a deadly weapon upon a peace officer. On February 27, 2025, Moran was pronounced deceased stemming from her injuries. Investigators later learned that Moran was in fact the person who initially placed the 911 call for the possible kidnap suspect. Linda Moran was a 30-year-old resident of Los Angeles.
I wanted to play all that for you, so you got really a complete picture of LAPD's transparency with these types of things. I think they did an excellent job on the release of the video and the description. And I'm not going to get into the tactics. I'm not going to get deep into my opinion or my reasoning for my opinion that this was a good shooting. I'm just going to tell you, I think it was a good shooting. It was a justifiable shooting. Simple as that. And we could spend a whole video on why and break it down into the tactics and justification, but I'll tell you that right now. I think it was a good shooting. Here's what I want to talk about. And here's why we decided to play this video pretty much in full for you, from the 911 call all the way through the interaction with the police officers before the shooting actually occurred until the end here. There's a reason I wanted you to see all of this for yourself. Let me read something to you. I read the headline. I'm going to read it again for you to remind you of what it said. LA Times. A trans sex worker called 911 to report being kidnapped. LAPD officer shot and killed her. You saw the video. You listened to the 911 tapes. When in that exchange between the 911 dispatcher or the police officers with the subject was this person's sexual orientation, their sex worker status or lack thereof, transgender status, when was any of this discussed? When did anybody know anything about this from LAPD's point of view? From the time this person called LAPD until a shot was fired, when did any of that information or alleged information come to light? The answer is never. It came to light, or at least it was publicized, I guess a better way to say it, from LA Times after the fact. You know, I was making a point before we went on air. It's be like if I called the sheriff's department where I lived and said, yeah, I'm wearing a blue shirt, and then the sheriff's department came over here and an altercation happened. I had a knife, a deadly weapon, and the headline, and they shot me, and the headline was, man in blue short shirt calls 911, sheriff's department shoots and kills him. What in the hell would my blue shirt have to do with the shooting? Ask yourself that. And what in the hell does this person's sexual orientation or otherwise status have to do with the shooting? Zero. Nothing. But LAPD, I keep saying LAPD. Maybe you can edit that out, Anthony. If not, I'll correct myself. LA Times wants you to believe. They want you to believe that this person's apparent status as a trans sex worker had something to do with this officer-involved shooting. It's an absolute disgrace. Let me read a little bit, and I did. I edited a lot. I said edit. I highlighted just some of this stuff for you from this LA Times article. By the way, I actually found this reprinted or whatever, and I think Yahoo News, but it's an LA Times article. This is from March 9th, so I don't know, whatever, a couple of weeks after the shooting. A trans woman was shot by police at a Pacoima motel last month after she called 911 for help, then approached the officers with the knife, according to video footage. According to video footage. How about this? As documented by video footage. Anyway, released Sunday by the Los Angeles Police Department. Linda Becerra Moran, 30, died February 27th after being on life support, and we heard that in the video. Footage of the encounter showed officers speaking in Spanish with a distraught Becerra Moran in the moments leading up to the shooting, keeping their guns drawn as she paced inside a motel room and they stood in the doorway. First of all, that's misleading because they didn't have their guns drawn the whole time. Matter of fact, they only had their guns drawn, or even one of the officers, I believe, there may have been more, but I only saw one in the video with his actual firearm drawn. That was very near the very end, after this person obtained a knife and put it to their neck. That's when a gun or maybe guns were drawn. But the reason I showed you the part there where they're actually rendering aid to her, giving her a brief examination for a claimed injury, this was the mindset of the officers when they got there. They didn't come in waving guns, walking around in an aggressive mode. They came there as a welfare check for someone who said that they were being held against their will. That's how it went down. That's not how it's reported in the Los Angeles Slimes. They opened fire after she moved slowly toward them in the video. Slowly is really, that is a matter of opinion. And if you're not there, by the way, I'm going to get into one tactic right here. When I was in the academy 35 years ago, there's a 21-foot rule, a 21-foot rule for someone who has a knife. If you don't have your gun drawn and someone within 21 feet has a knife and they charge you, you probably won't get your gun drawn and be able to actually fire it before they can actually inflict an injury upon you. I don't know if this officer was trained the same way, but I sure was. So that she was not 21 feet away with that knife. This officer was assaulted. He defended himself and he defended his fellow officers. Anyway, they opened fire after she moved slowly, quote unquote, the video showed. But Sarah Moran had reported being held against her will in the motel room as a possible victim of sex trafficking, said, get this, I am not making this name up. I don't think I could have come up with a better one. Anyway, she said she was being held against her will, said Soma snake oil. Yes, you're hearing that right. Snake, as in slithering snake oil. Executive director of the Sidewalk Project, a Skid Row nonprofit. I can make some real comments right here about nonprofits in California. It's like I could nonprofits around the country right now, wondering where that money is going. But again, that's for another video. But Sarah Moran was hospitalized in grave condition after the shooting, Snake Oil said, and the decision to end life support was approved by the ethics committee of the hospital where she was being treated after attempts to reach her family members in her native Ecuador were unsuccessful. There's so much to unpack here, but don't worry, we're going to stay laser focused. Quote, this has such chilling connotations for survivors in LA. If they're afraid to call 911, if they're afraid that police are going to shoot them when they call 911, said Snake Oil. What an absolutely despicable thing to say. That anybody who is not going to assault an officer who calls 911 is going to be harmed by officers when they're the victims. They're calling for assistance or calling for a welfare check. This is absolutely despicable. I'm going to say it, read it again. This has such chilling connotations for survivors, whatever that means, in LA. If they're afraid to call 911, if they're afraid that police are going to shoot them when they call 911, said Snake Oil. And boy, I'll tell you right now, Snake Oil, there's not been a better name ever applied to someone like this, because she is selling snake oil, this person. Authorities have so far released few additional details about the deadly encounter. By the way, what do you mean additional details? They put the whole thing on the internet for you, ladies and gentlemen. They put the entire 911 call, they put the responding officer's radio traffic with dispatch, and they showed the actual physical encounter and officer-involved shooting on the internet for all of us to see and pass our own judgment. What do you mean few additional details have been released? Well, we found out from somebody from Snake Oil, this person claims to be a trans sex worker from Ecuador. We found that out. There's some additional details. Anyway, including whether they detained Sarah Moran's alleged captor when they arrived. Now, whether or not they arrested anybody else regarding, again, her allegations that she was being held against her will has absolutely nothing to do with the officer-involved shooting. None whatsoever. Although, it would be nice to know if this person was truly a victim of sex trafficking. That would be very interesting, and it would not be surprising, because this is the environment, ladies and gentlemen. This poor soul, and what a poor soul this person was and is, hopefully, in the afterlife. But this person here is obviously has emotional, psychological problems, maybe a victim of sex trafficking, maybe not. But the policies in California, the policies in Los Angeles County, the policies in the city of Los Angeles that encourage these people to stay on the street or to stay in situations like this led to this person's death. Plain and simple. I'm going to read a little bit about that from this article in a second. In her conversation with 911 dispatcher, a distraught sounding Moran is heard saying that a man in a different room was holding her against her will and bringing other men into the room. Are they forcing you to do this? The dispatcher asked. Yes, Sarah Moran responds. We don't know if that's true or not. At least to this point, we don't know. But again, it has very little bearing whatsoever on this shooting. The bearing that it does have is if other people are in these types of positions, if her allegations are true, because of the absolutely wretched policies of the state of California and the city of Los Angeles specifically. The video released by police shows a group of officers entering the room and asking Becerra Moran to sit on the bed as she shows them a wound she has in the back of her head from getting hit many times with a bottle. When the supervisor arrives, she becomes upset and demands that they stay away from her, sobbing and yelling at the officers to leave. And you saw this in the video. No, if you guys were offering help, I don't want your help, she yells at them. And remember, this is the person who called 911, who's sobbing, who's begging for help. I'm being held captive. I'm being forced to engage in sex acts against my will. I've been kidnapped. That's redundant with being held against your will. And now she's saying, get out of here. I don't want your help. Obviously, this person needs psychological help. She then begins pushing a mini fridge in the direction before grabbing a knife and holding it to her neck, prompting the officer to draw their weapons. Now, this goes back to the headlines. So in the article, after they pull you on this crap about sex worker calls 911 for help, LAPD officer shoot and kill her. Then deep in the article, they actually get into what happened. So the headline should have said this: XYZ person calls for help as kidnapped victims, draws knife on LAPD officers upon their arrival, and she's shot and killed. That's what the headline should say. But no, LA Times, I got it right this time, doesn't want you to believe that this is anybody else's fault other than the quote-unquote system or these poor LAPD officers who just try to do their damn job. Snake Oil, whose organization offers services for unhoused people, unhoused. I'll tell you right now, the made-up words, the euphemisms that the left comes up with are endless. It used to be bum, then it was transient, then it was homeless, now it's unhoused. By the way, this person was housed because they had a roof over their head in this motel room. How this person afforded it? She claims that she was a victim of kidnapping and sex trafficking, which could be true. Could be true. I wouldn't be surprised if that motel room was funded through some program. I could be wrong. I'm saying I wouldn't be surprised if that were the case. Said she first encountered Becerra Moran at MacArthur Park. This is Snake Oil. Says she first encountered Becerra Moran at MacArthur Park in 2023 when police were warning about a serial killer who appeared to be targeting homeless people. Isn't that funny? They used unhoused and homeless in the same paragraph. Must have been a mistake by the editor at Los Angeles Times. At the time, Becerra Moran was fleeing from sexual violence, quote unquote. Snake Oil said, and the organization worked to get her temporarily housed in local motels. Did you hear that? And do you remember what I said about 1 minute ago? I would not be surprised for those of you living in Los Angeles County, the city of Los Angeles, or the decrepit state of California, if your taxpayer money was not going to pay for the motel room where this person was staying. So it's unhoused, homeless crap is just that. My guess is, just based on this paragraph alone, that taxpayer money was quite possibly paying for this person to be housed in that motel room. Across Los Angeles County, Snake Oil said shelter beds for female survivors of human trafficking are scarce, especially for those who are trans or who struggle with mental health. First of all, that's a lie, because we know that there are untold numbers of empty beds in these homeless shelters in Los Angeles County. You don't believe me? Go look up the stats yourself. Go to these nonprofits who have the beds and you look at their own websites and find out if they have room for people in there that are not being used. They're not being used because these places, many of them, hold their residents accountable and expect certain things out of them. And these homeless, drug addicts, 5150s, people with mental and psychological, emotional problems don't want to stay there under the rules of anybody else. So this whole thing. Now, on top of that, what in the hell, again, what does she mean by Snake Oil mean by, especially for people who are trans? Do the beds and the sheets care if you're trans or not? Absolutely ridiculous. I know the administrators of these organizations don't care. So there's a lot more to that article. You look at that article up, the headline is easy to remember, and you'll see it right here. Matter of fact, Anthony, do me a favor. I want you to go ahead and link this entire article so people can read it in its totality for themselves and see what a mess LA Times continues to be. I think LA Times has a new owner who really was transparent about getting away from this absolutely juvenile, quote unquote, reporting. Apparently, his orders haven't caught up with the reporters and editors yet, so I hope it does soon. So, ladies and gentlemen, my point to all of this is obviously many of you out there are going to have dissenting opinions from mine in regards to the legality of that shooting. I think that it was legally a good shooting, and I think I'm not on LAPD policy. My guess it's within LAPD policy. It's going to be heavily scrutinized, of course, and we'll find out what happens with that scrutiny as time goes by. But the bigger picture here is the reporting from not only the Los Angeles Times, but from any number of media outlets are so caught up in their own narrative about how things really are, they simply cannot find it within themselves to do what journalism used to do. Just the facts, ma'am, from Dragnet. Just tell me exactly what happened. Don't put up any misleading or deceiving headlines, in this case, indicating that someone was shot and killed by LAPD because they're trans. That's what that headline says. It's despicable. It's disgusting. And if the people at Los Angeles Times had any character, had any shame at all, they would be embarrassed and they would retract that headline, but they won't. Watch what you read, watch what you listen to, and do your best to get the facts for yourself so you know exactly what you're dealing with when you see crap like this. For your Leo Nation, I'm the Chief, Mark Garrett. God bless you. Stay safe. We'll see you next time.